All right, so it's a nice day outside. I finally got a break from the rain and I'm able to kind of catch up on some stuff around the house and around the yard. And it's a good time for me to answer one of the questions I get asked the most, and that is, when is it okay to move my turtle outside? And how big should my turtle be when I move it outside? So let's get into that. All right, so one question I get asked a lot is when is my turtle going to be ready to move outside? Because I keep everything outdoors, that is just kind of the biggest kind of method to my madness is the fact that I keep everything outside. But there is a time and a place to move things outside, and some turtles just cannot be kept inside year round. Depending on where you live, you may be able to pull off, keeping a red-eared slider year round. Most places that's actually possible. But for example, if you have a red-footed tortoise, you're probably going to have to bring it in through the winter. In most of the U.S., most of Europe, parts of Asia, you may have to bring that tortoise in during the winter months. So let's talk about what turtles are good to keep outside year round, what turtles need to be brought inside, and then what size your turtle should be when you want to start putting it outside. All right, so one thing that's going to be the most helpful is if you keep things that are either native to where you live or native to your latitude, or the area that you live in, if where they come from is very similar. For example, I have a whole lot of river cooters, Florida cooters, painted turtles. All my basking turtles are basically natives to the US and to the area that I live in, and so it makes it really easy for me to keep them outside. I'll let this dude on a dirt bike drive by. Oh man. So yeah, I keep everything that's native to the part of the world that I live in, and it just makes it so easy. I just keep them outside. They're used to going through the winter. They're naturally programmed to have to go through a winter. So it's really easy for me to put them outside, and I don't really have anything I have to worry about. All right, so now for example, my Russian tortoises behind me, they're not native to where I live, but they do come from areas that do have a warm summer and a cool winter. And so they're able to kind of naturally adapt to the winter that I have. Here where I live in Georgia, we're in the southern United States, so we have very mild winters, usually a handful of months long, and really it only gets to freezing a few times of the year, especially freezing for longer than maybe 6 or 7 hours. So what these guys do is they do what they normally do in the wild, and they just bury down into the ground and they brumate and just wait it out until it's warm, and then they come back out in the spring. All right, so right now I'm going to try and find a Sulcata tortoise. I know they're hiding out in the shade during this hottest part of the day, but with Sulcata tortoises, they come from a place that's completely different from here. It's very hot, it's very arid, it's dry, and that's year round. They get seasonal rains for a very short period of time. So for a Sulcata tortoise here where I live, it's much more humid than where they would normally be. And we also get a winter, and that's not something that they would normally get. So what I have to do is in the winter, I have to bring my Sulcatas inside, and they have to kind of hang out indoors. And then if I get a nice day, I can put them back out. So here's my Sulcata over here. There he is. So again, my Sulcata has to come in during the winter, and I keep the garage, which is what he was in the last 2 winters. So I keep his indoor area at about 80 degrees through those months that he's inside. If I do get a day that comes into mid 60s all the way up to 70s, I'll bring him outside, but I have to bring him in before the temperatures drop at night. If these guys get 60 degrees or below, especially if they get wet at those temperatures, they're really prone to respiratory infections, and it's not good. As much as they do need water, they do need to be dry, especially if it's going to be cool. Now, this time of year, the temperatures are high enough that they can get rained on. And I mean, today it's rained all day, and then now it's sunny. These guys are doing fine. They've adapted great to the humidity. They've lived here in Georgia their entire life, so they're adapted to our weather. Now, if you had something like an imported leopard tortoise or an imported Sulcata tortoise, which doesn't really happen anymore, you would start to run into issues because they have not grown up in humidity. So having high humidity would really start to cause problems for them. When would you want to move a Sulcata tortoise outside if you lived in a place like pretty much anywhere in the US or Canada where you have an ability to put it outside? Well, you would first want to wait till it's at least 4 or 5 inches. Once they become a nice big nugget, it's easier for you to keep an eye on them. It's less likely that any crusty little animal or predator is going to pick them up and run off with them. So my rule of thumb for terrestrial tortoises and turtles is think about what an adult box turtle is. That's about when you want to start putting it outside. Now you can do it when they're smaller, but what I would recommend is if you're going to do it when they're smaller, like a hatchling, put them in like a small tortoise table on your porch or your patio where you can keep an immediate eye on them. I think the other sulcata is right there too. I can see it moving. All right, so my next point is how big should your turtle be when you move it outside? You're gonna want your turtle to be big enough to where you can immediately see it. It also needs to be big enough to withstand being in the sun and being in the rain and all that. So you wouldn't wanna put a teeny tiny turtle in a pond like this. It can be easily overwhelmed. It could be killed and eaten by one of the other turtles. You'd be surprised how savage they could be. So, for example, with my baby turtles, I created the baby stock tank. I made a video of that. I'll put the link up here. With the baby stock tank, it's all baby turtles. It's all in a controlled environment. I actually have a lid over that to protect from predators. They're ready to go outside. Now, at the end of this, summer or fall, any of them that are not 4 inches or above, I'm gonna bring back inside just to assure that when they go through winter, they're gonna be fine. Sometimes mass can be important. So size can help insulate through the cold. So once those turtles are about 4 or 5 inches, I can kind of rest comfortable knowing that they'll make it through the winter and knowing that they won't freeze or kind of be overwhelmed by the cold temperatures. That said, I have had plenty of turtles that have hatched out here on my property, made it through the winter on their own, and then I find them in the spring, just like all those baby painted turtles. So nature does do it best. We're just here trying to simulate that. The turtle's big enough, if you have the space, and once you're comfortable with it, because you're in charge. You're the one keeping an eye on them. You're the one making sure that they're going to be okay. They're going to be dependent on you to basically survive. To give you an example of a turtle that I have raised from a baby and that is now ready to go outdoors this year in the big pond is this river cooter. Now I have had this river cooter since it was a tiny hatchling, and it actually came to me with a group of about 4 others, and this one was the slowest growing one, and it has taken this turtle a long time just to reach this size, which is about 5 or 6 inches. And so I basically had to wait and keep this one in separate setups and put it outside during the summer, bring it in the winter, put it outside in the summer, bring it in the winter, until now it's at a healthy enough size that it's ready for the big pond, ready to be out here with the other turtles that are its size and larger, and it's also ready to go through its first winter. So I'm going to keep an eye on it this year. Always watch your turtles. Never fully trust anything. Always keep an eye on it. But if it has healthy weight going into fall, there's no reason it shouldn't be fine in the winter. So this little guy has now gotten big enough to be ready for the big pond, and this is where it's gonna live now. There you go, homie. Now I will say that you can take turtles that are from like a tropical type environment, and you can get them adjusted over to where you live. I have kind of stair-stepped my yellow-footed tortoise into staying out longer and longer each year here where I live. I have kept her out a little bit lower temperatures and a little bit lower temperatures going into November, to where now she handles the 40s just fine. But I do it just very gradually. I'm always watching humidity and temperature swings and all that, and she's done better. It's the same way that I've gotten turtles that are native to South Florida, like peninsula cooters and Florida red bellies, to adjust to staying out here year-round here in North Georgia where I live. Now, for example, some turtles will just never be able to do that. I don't think my Mata turtle will ever be able to handle temperatures probably below 50 degrees. I'll never actually put him outside during that. So as long as I have him and as long as I live here, he's going to go from being outside in the hottest parts of the year to being inside during the cool parts of the year. And that's just part of having that turtle. So you do have to look at what your means is. If you have a huge yard and you live in the south and you have most of the year to keep things outside, you're doing great, and you're going to be able to keep things outside for longer or for year round. Now, if you live in Pennsylvania, New York, or Maine, or something like that, you're going to have a narrow window of being able to put things outside. I still think you should if you have the space, but you definitely need to have the space to bring things back inside to help them, continue to grow in a smooth way and not have any jarring issues with winter. I do find that winter is one of the tougher times of year for most reptile keepers, myself included. I still have a hard time dragging that sulcata from the back of the yard into the garage, and I always feel bad when they're cooped up inside, but that is part of it. So hope this video helps. Thank you guys for watching this. Like, comment, subscribe. Please share this video with friends and family. Share the good word of turtles, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Take care.